After scores of media were sending requests for comments to the president of the Chicago Teachers Union over allegations that she sends her child to a private school, she has broken her silence. And I'd like to hear your thoughts. 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News, and the story really highlights what some see as just blatant hypocrisy. Stacy Davis Gates, she is the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, making $150,000 there, and then making a total of $220,000 when you combine Illinois Federation of Teachers' salary. That's according to the U.S. Department of Labor. And Wire Points has been unpacking this, but other media outlets from WBEZ and the Chicago Sun-Times to various TV stations out of Chicago. This is a big issue because you had Stacy Davis Gates previously condemn the issue of private schools and school choice vouchers and things along those lines, saying that it is, quote, the choice of racists and calling them, quote, segregation academies. But after online discussion about alleging she sends her kid to private school, it raised the issue of just how hypocritical this is. So we do have a statement now that's been provided to WBEZ and other media outlets, and here's just some of what she ultimately says in her statement. She says that we can all agree that options for black students, their families, and entire black communities on the city's south and west sides are limited, she said in her letter. She goes on further to say that nearly all lack the thriving extracurricular activities, sports programs, wraparound services, or other ingredients that make for a high-quality neighborhood public school. She goes on to say, yes, for my husband and me, it forced us to send our son, after years of attending a public school, to a private high school so he could live out his dream of being a soccer player while also having a curriculum that can meet his social and emotional needs, even as his two sisters remain in Chicago public schools, she said in the letter. She went on to also talk about how the story was initiated by a, quote, former CTU employee with a history of violent incidents who had stalked members of my family and made threats against other CTU members. He's now publicly doxed my teenage son online, she said. She said, let's be clear, this crosses a line. We have a deep culture and democracy within our union, but targeting children, exposing them to harm, or collaborating with extremist, racist, or anti-worker forces is not debate and cannot be excused. So your thoughts on this, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number here with Springfield's Morning News, getting a statement out from Stacy Davis Gates, the Chicago Teachers Union president, who represents public school teachers and has criticized private school choice and even the Invest in Kids Act, which set to expire at the end of this year, giving private donations to parents to send their kids to a school of their choice. That's being threatened by no action being taken by the legislature, but Stacy Davis Gates has previously criticized that, as has other teachers' unions, saying that it diverts money away from public schools. Well, it's not the only thing being diverted away from public schools. You've got Stacy Davis Gates diverting her child away from public schools to go into a private school. So your thoughts, 217-629-7970. One thing in politics is you don't go after children, right? You don't use children as a tool in political discourse. But is this part of that? Is this going after a child, as Stacy Davis Gates says this whole story is all about? Or is it more about Stacy Davis Gates and what people are seeing and pointing to and calling hypocrisy? 217-629-7970. And all of this when you've got the question of the cost of education. Because, listen, the average cost of sending a kid to a school in Illinois, a public school, it's about, $16,000 or so. That's the average statewide. Some districts, it's $5,000 or $7,000. Up in Chicago, you're looking at $28,000 or so per student in Chicago. That's an exorbitant amount. And Stacy Davis Gates saying that schools are not funded properly, and that's led to a lack of a quality education in Chicago public schools. And that's exactly the reason why people want school choice, is to get out of these failing schools and into private school of their choice. So your thoughts on this? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg.
Hey.
So I guess it's okay for Miss Davis Gates' son, to live out his dreams and be the best he can be, but it's not okay for other black students, even though she says we all agree options are important. Well, if you agree options are important, Stacy Davis Gates, I guess we'll see you championing extending and making permanent investing in kids. Don't count on it.
Yeah, and the legislature has 6 days in fall veto session to take that up. Is she going to be down here to support Invest in Kids so that other people in her community? Yeah.
She better be there. I mean, I expect to see her. You say you believe in options. Okay, we want to see you there. We want to see you bring all the force of the CTU down here and get it done. Otherwise, you are nothing but a flippin' hypocrite.
Got you down. Appreciate the call. 217-629-7970. You can call in live and sound off. You can also email me, bishoponair@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Just comments that way as well. But would love to hear your thoughts, especially with that consideration that we've got the Invest in Kids School Choice Scholarship Program set to expire if lawmakers don't act on it, and teachers unions opposing it. You look at messages from the Illinois Federation of Teachers, for example. They say that there's no standard review of outcomes from private schools, and that's a problem. There's no standard of review for how the money's being used from the Invest in Kids program. They say that the $100 million of a cap in the program is too expensive, diverts money from public schools, even though they've never gotten to that $100 million investment cap. I think they've gotten to maybe close to $40 million in that investment cap. But regardless, you've got this issue that's going to be very much contentious during fall veto session. And it's all about providing parents of lesser means grants so they can send their kid to a school of their choice to get them out of a failing public school. So Stacy Davis Gates, the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, says that the school district in her area was not sufficient, and in order to allow for her son to, quote, live out his dream of being a soccer player while also having a curriculum that can meet his social and emotional needs, even as his two sisters remain in Chicago public schools. So it's a choice that she made. So she has the ability to do that, which is pretty remarkable. It's something I think is ruffling some feathers up in Chicago and really across the state, because here we are in Springfield. We're talking about this. Where do you stand on this? 217-629-7970. Mary on Facebook says it's propaganda, calling it dark money propaganda. Trying to equate this with some nonprofit organization, saying it's charter schools. Go hit those talking points, Greg. Well, call in, 217-629-7970. So is this not hypocritical? I mean, that's really the point here. I'm not trying to convey talking points. I'm giving all sides of this conversation. And, of course, opening it up for you to sound off at 217-629-7970. Listen, I think that anybody, regardless if they're into the political conversations or not, whether they're wonky or not, they can see that somebody who in one side of the debate says private school choice is the choice of racists and segregation academies. How is that not a talking point of the public union industry, right? Using that type of rhetoric about school choice programs, opposing Illinois' only school choice program. So the president of the CTU using that rhetoric, those talking points, to criticize those pushing for an option for parents of lesser means to send their kids to a private school. But on the other side, she's got the means for school choice, making $200,000+ a year, and she sends her child to a private school of their choice because she has the means to do so. So, if you want to label somebody one way or the other, I guess that's your prerogative. But listen, the talking points she has laid out, she's gone against. People pointing that and saying it's hypocritical. I'd love to hear from you. 217-629-7970. We'll get more of your calls. All right, so line those up. Taking your phone calls about what some see as hypocrisy from the Chicago Teachers Union president sending her child to a private school after criticizing private schools using rhetoric like they're the choice of racists. And interesting that some don't really have a solid response to this. Instead, they'll cast aspersions and make ad hominem attacks. Shows a lack of ability to actually provide substantive debate on this issue. So I can understand some people who are so set in their ways to label this just as a right or a left issue. I don't see that this way. I think anybody on any side of the political spectrum, moderates, independents, Democrats, conservatives, Republicans, liberals, even socialists and communists, I think that anybody can see that when somebody out of one side of the mouth criticizes private schools as racist, and then out of the other side sends their child to a private school, that's just hypocritical. And I don't know where anybody can defend that. But please feel free if you want. 217-629-7970. Feel free to defend it. This is obviously a format where you can call in and sound off. You can email bishoponair@gmail.com. You can message us on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can also find me on Facebook and comment that way. But Stacy Davis Gates, the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, finally breaking her silence after it was revealed that she sends her child to a private school. And some of the statements they made was, for her and her husband, it forced them to send their son to a private school because of the lack of opportunity in the public school in their area. She's the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, the union that represents public school teachers. But yet she doesn't exclusively send her kids to public school. She's got 2 kids in public school, but one, she says, in order for her son to achieve his dream, they made the decision to send their child to a private school. I know that there's a lot of families out there that would love for their children to achieve their dream, but they don't have that choice. They're breaking their backs, working day in, day out, make sure they can pay their property taxes that continue to increase to fund a public school in their area that's not meeting the standards. And you've got them trying to live day by day, paycheck to paycheck. They don't have that choice. But those who are of means, like Stacy Davis Gates, the president of the Chicago Teachers Union, apparently they do have that choice and are willing to use that choice. Your thoughts? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Hey, you speaking that she said she's doing it for him to achieve his dream. You got people talking about just sheer survival, right. Trying to get their kids out of the system or the public school system just so that they can live and survive. And it's just hypocritical. There's no way around it.
Yeah, and it's not a right or a left issue. I think anybody can see that. I appreciate the call. We've got full phone lines. We'll get to a couple of more. Good morning. You're on WMAY. Real quick, please.
Hey, Bishop. Does she say what her child's dream is, that they can't get this education at public school?
To be a soccer player, to be a professional soccer player.
Okay.
So that's apparently the dream that she wants her child to be able to achieve. One last call. You've got 30 seconds. Go.
Okay. One of my favorite quotations from George Wallace when he was running for president. He said, out of all the 458 people in Congress, how many send their kids to public schools? The answer was 2. Only 2. That's it.
It's pretty remarkable, and I've seen other statistics elsewhere that highlight a similar type of trend amongst those who are of a privileged class, sending their children to private school to get out of failing public schools. And the Chicago Teachers Union president essentially making that case, that her school and public school is failing, her son needs better outcomes, and they sent her son to a private school of their choice. Well, there's families in Chicago that don't have that choice.
From the Fly SPI Studios.